Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's go to the mailbag. People have asked this question before, so I want to try and give you a different answer rather than just answer the same questions, give you the same answers. So here goes. Dear Percherino, Areno, where did that come from, by the way? See, it feels like a 1950s thing. Hey Steve Areno, I don't know why would somebody create that nickname for people? I think if you're meeting somebody for the first time, like what would compel you to add the Areno to the name to make it playful? I don't know. Just anyway, interesting. All right, dear Pertrino, uh, there is a debate online about whether comics have gotten better or not. Some say the comics are as bad as ever and are flopping. Others say that. By the way, I've come to hate the word flop. We'll get to that in a minute, but anyway, some say comics are flopping, others say the comics are better than they've ever been, or at least that there is so much good material to read. You read a lot of comics, I do. What do you think? Are comics better? Are they worse? The same? How would you grade comics? Well, okay, so first of all, I'll give you the simple answer, and then the video is almost over. The simple answer is it's subjective. I don't know. What do you think? That's the answer. I'm being cheeky a little bit, but that kind of is the answer. It's like it really doesn't matter whether I think or anyone thinks the comics are good or bad or whatever. It's like what do you think? Unless you're the kind of person who likes to outsource your opinions to random other people, and for me, I'm the Gen X generation. So for me, I mean, I have to kind of check myself sometimes because I have a predisposition to automatically like or dislike the opposite of what the masses are saying. That's just kind of how we're wired. If lots of people are, and I think this explains, by the way, a bunch of stuff that goes on online. If a bunch of people are saying like comics are amazing, it's like, nah, I kind of want to say they suck just by my nature. And if people say comics suck, I kind of want to find that there are good comics by my nature. It's just that's just kind of it's how we roll, man. But the reality is, it's subjective. You know, if you are finding good stuff to read, more power to you. I can throw lots of analysis, and that's kind of the other videos I've done on this topic. In my opinion, you've got 600 books out there a month from the big two and all the independents. About 600 books. No, Perch, it's not that many. Yeah, it actually is that many. I'm not counting manga in that. Just 600 books. And in that world, you can look at it two ways. Either one way you look at it is to say, if you can't find some good books, some entertaining books out of 600 a month, then you're not really trying. I mean, I absolutely believe, I've heard some people do like, oh, comic books are all shit now. No, they're not. Out of 600 books, you can find good books every week. There what, 4 weeks in a month? Sometimes you have a fifth week in there, but let's say four, that's 150 books a week. Okay. If 10%, just 10% of those are good, you're talking 15 comics, 1.5. And given current comic prices, that those 15 comics are going to cost you roughly $300. No, I'm kidding. But I'm just imagine if you had 15 good books to read every week, wouldn't you be ecstatic? I mean, hell, that's a good amount. So that's one way you could look at it. Say, yeah, there's of course good books. The other way you could look at it is saying, Jesus Christ, 600 books is way too many, and that's a lot of shit. So so let's say 10% of those are good. Okay, 15 books a week, or 60 books a month. 60 books a month. Christ, there are not six. I do not find 60 good books a month to read. And so maybe that's an indictment of saying, okay, so yeah, there may be in a wild fantasy, there may be 60 good books to read every month, but that also means there's 540 shit books. That's a lot of shitty books. That's the industry does suck. That's too many. So I mean, you can do the math any way you want to kind of prove the point you want. But the reality is, it's look, are there some good books out there? Yeah. Now, if I give you a more specific answer, to me, I think if you're going company by company, I think Marvel is in bad shape, or at least it's in a kind of dismal shape. Are there good books coming out from Marvel? There are, but and this is kind of the point I've tried to make with saying, comic books need to matter. When you hit a good book, it's often like hey, this is a 4-issue limited series set back during the status quo of Daredevil in the 90s when he had his kind of more skater black and red costume on. And it's a good story and you enjoy reading it and everything else, but what does it mean? Like, are you going to remember it later? Is it matter? Does it, I mean, again, enjoying a comic means it matters, but if it's just clearly a throwaway story, it could still be a fun throwaway story. Look, I did a review of that Uncanny X-Men annual, the one with Alan Davis art, where the X-Men go into a crystal prism kind of world and they're haunted by their fears, and Wolverine winds up kind of ascending into godhood, then rejects it. Like, that was a throwaway story because it really didn't matter. They didn't come back to that later. They didn't, it didn't build the continuity or anything else, but it was a damn good story and I enjoyed it. So therefore, it mattered. But I do think there's Marvel in particular is doing a little bit too much of the nostalgia bait, which is, we'll do this limited series and it's Mr. Fix-It when Hulk was gray and was in Vegas, and the stories are fine, but it's playing a little bit too much to the member berries of, a time period you liked. And so you still get a good story, but it also doesn't feel like, it feels slightly like cheating. I know you should just shut up and enjoy it, but still it's not quite the same. But I think you look at other things Marvel's doing. Look, the Avengers lineup is, there's no energy behind it. Spider-Man's doing stuff, but again, it's like, it just doesn't have the momentum. Jonathan Hickman's doing this Imperial series, and it just doesn't, like it. I've talked to shop owners, I've read it myself. It doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't, the impact is missing. You look at the announcements of what the X-Men line is going to be like after Age of Revelation, and it's like there'll be all these new comics, and Tim Seeley's going to do a Psylocke book, and it's like, I'm sure some of those stories will be okay, but none of them feel inspiring. None of them feel like, light the house on fire. Kind of this will be a new anchor, and I'll give you an example of Marvel when they've had this feeling, when they get this feeling right. A lot of you complain about Brian Michael Bendis. Well, Bendis did this Dark Reign stuff, which was an imprint between Secret Invasion and then the Siege, and ultimately the Fear Itself event. So there was this about year and a half where Norman Osborn was in control. The villains were the Avengers, the heroes were underground, and everything else. And there was an energy behind that. The books that were getting announced, like, oh, we're going to do a Dark Avengers book, and they were introducing the characters via silhouettes, and it was just interesting, and it held people's attention, and it felt like I've got to be in on that. It had buzz, and it doesn't feel like that now in Marvel. When you look at the books coming out of Age of Revelation, it's like, okay. The Inglorious X-Force. It's like, all right. I mean, fine. I've got Cable and Boom Boom on a team again, but I mean, what about that screams like the Rick Remender X-Force, or, the various time periods of Marvel where they had that energy. That's my problem with Marvel. I'm not saying there's no good books out there. I'm just saying if you're saying that Marvel has a bunch of great books, I don't, again, it's subjective, but I don't see it. DC's trying a few new things. DC's also got their, hey, after KO is all done, we got, I forget what they're calling the new imprint now, but the DC All In Max Plus. It's not called that, but and they got announced a Hawkman book and a Lobo book and all these other titles, and they've also got a batch of creators. A lot of them are former Marvel creators. We'll see. There's Dennis Camp, and you got Mariko Tamaki on something, and we'll see how those books do. But DC at least feels like there's more of a purpose to what they're doing. It feels like with the books they're putting out that the powers that be have a plan. Now, it may wind up being a shitty plan, but it feels like there's a plan. It feels like there's a definite effort to say, guys, we're gonna, we're actually we're going somewhere. We're gonna do it. We're gonna try. We're gonna try and make this work. And that's something that whatever it happens to be, whether it's wrestling on TV, whether it's movies, whether it's a franchise, music, comics, whatever it happens to be, uh, the feeling like the company knows what it's doing and has a plan is good. So I think DC, as a result, the books feel like there's more momentum there. And, there's some good books over at DC. I still am enjoying a lot of what's going on in the core titles. Batman, the idea that Batman's, fighting the police again for the 5,000th time. I'm like, all right. But Superman, okay. They just announced Joshua Williamson for Iron Man. I realize that's Marvel again, but okay. Maybe we're going to give Iron Man a decent shot at doing something impactful. But just that's kind of what I mean when I say comics that matter and where comics are at. Image, yeah, I mean, Image comes and goes. I think they have, good books and they get a run. I think they're finally, they don't have the crutch of Saga or Walking Dead to kind of prop them up. So you're seeing them kind of curate some new stuff, try to get some new franchise out there. The Skybound stuff is, the Inner John Universe stuff is still going well. I mean, I think they're hitting their stride with that, putting out more books. A lot of the other indies, there's some good books out there, from whether you're talking Boom or Dark Horse or Mad Cave or, whoever it might be. I think the challenge with the indie realm is that a lot of them are still sucked into the trauma of Diamond imploding. And so there's questions about how, are we going to get some of these books, or are we stuck in a world now where, the distribution is so shaky that a lot of these indie companies are going to struggle under Penguin Random House or wherever they happen to be. You look at Dynamite, for example, and Dynamite is giving off what is it? What is it that my daughter says? It's giving off desperation to some extent, because the comic is the whole company is like, you want to enjoy this book, but you don't know whether you're going to get another copy because there seems to be problems with the distributor and getting comics out, and that uncertainty doesn't help. But like I said, it's subjective. I think comic books are definitely better than they were back in, the 2015. Maybe not Marvel. I don't think Marvel may not be better. There's some good books out there, but they're frankly the bullshit narrative. There are no good books in Marvel at 2015 is not true. There were good books in 2015 for Marvel. They were doing some interesting things there. So I think this, the entire universe was shitty in a crater. I mean, that's not true. But hell, the Avengers under Hickman during that time period was pretty badass in a lot of ways. I like the Time Runs Out storyline. I like the New Avengers and the Incursion stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. So I think Marvel is. I don't know if Marvel's better. Marvel, it's possible it's worse, or at very least level. I think DC is definitely better. If you look at DC from the DCU and even some of the Rebirth stuff, I think DC is actually doing things a little bit more momentum. I think the indie comic scene is a little bit better. You did have some highlights there with Invincible and Walking Dead and titles like that, but I think arguably Walking Dead went a little bit past its expiration date as a title. But anyway, I think the indies are actually stronger. I think DC is stronger. I think Marvel is, flatlined to maybe a little worse. And that's how I'd call it. But again, everybody's going to read comics and find different things they enjoy. And, fuck, what more power to you. What I don't think is helpful is that people immediately run. You need to give a thoughtful answer to this and not rush to this. It's a flop, 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 flop. Bullshit. Everything can't be a flop. And maybe this again is a Gen X in me, but the more people, bleat on and on about flops, the more I just want to take the alternate opinion, because I think that, I'm anxious to go see the new Tron movie. I haven't seen it yet. The Nine Inch Nails soundtrack, yeah, I'm interested to hear it. The visuals look pretty cool. The premise looks stupid, but we'll see. How do they pull it off? I feel at least I may get a good movie. But when I go on to any kind of social media, it is just nonstop. It's another flop, and it's like I'm tired of hearing things flopping. I'm just tired. I don't that I mean, what's the everything can't be a flop. And I think the more it just feels like everybody's rushing to call things a flop, and this comic's a flop, and that comic's a flop, and it just uh, I'm sick of the word. The more this gets overused, again, the more I just want to object on principle. So, that's where I sit. So anyway, I does that answer your question once and for all? I guess I'll let me conclude with this. It doesn't matter what I think, to quote The Rock. It doesn't matter. I can say anything. Anybody can say anything. Any comic book channel, any comic book news site, any social media, anything. Anybody can say anything. That comics are flops or comics are better than ever. And unless you enjoy giving your personal opinion and tastes away to someone else, unless you just don't like to have opinions of your own and just rely on somebody else to tell you what your opinions are, none of that matters. That can be interesting to hear what other people think, but really, who cares? The operative question is, what do you think? Thanks for listening.